Hey guys, what is going on, Rash here, and welcome back to episode of Casting Conflicts for you. Today we've got a great match lined up, so without much ado, let's go ahead and jump right in to match number one.
Okay.
Alright folks, and welcome back to episode of Casting Conflicts here, as I not put it in full screen for a second there. We've got Jump taking on Bolas, of course, the Ninja Druid taking on Bolas's Warlock Pirate, bringing a new deck into the fold here, and of course with me, the co-caster, the original co-caster for the series, Slash. I just returned to a Slash. How you doing?
Pretty good today. We heard Bolas said that it was going to be a Cargrim deck, so I'm pretty excited for that. I think he could have a couple of issues though, because Jump does run Shadow Katana in here, and that is +4, so it's a guaranteed +2 on any unit. And the fact that Cargrim is a unique -2 to everything, so it's not guaranteed that that he will be able to take away damage from something like a Kuro, which could still OTK.
Right, certainly. So we are seeing a pretty standard start to the game, I would say. Bolas, a bit of a early aggro, or has some kind of early aggro here, excuse me. Two Lumberjacks, Southport already rushing down face here. Meanwhile, Jump just getting his turn 3 here. Could bring out a Koru for turn 4 if he wants to use that metal here, or the Mana Core, either one. I might see him, I don't know, do you think he goes into the Koru here?
I know I would. It's basically a guaranteed free movement out into the center of the board somewhere. He can hide it. He only loses 1 health, and then he can trade off his Masuda. And I mean, right now he's gonna have a bad Masuda trade here, when instead he could be trading it into Captain.
Right, and that would be a lot better. But Bolas immediately seeing that, he's going to take the opportunity to get that draw off the Lumberjack into Masuda, following up with a Shaman. So yeah, Bolas actually continuing to be aggressive here, and Dagger Storm, that kind of hurts Jump there. But I mean, hey, better than hitting the Koru with that, right?
Absolutely. Keeping that crew alive and then getting something like Manticore Bestial Rage, that combination there is a game winner.
Certainly. But we'll see how Jump decides to recover here. He might go into a second Wizard, maybe trying to bait out more of Bolas's direct damage within the Pirates, because of course some of the pirate spells, like we know Dagger Storm, doesn't really need a target on board, as long as it's a unit on the field. Of course, that'll inflict the bleed. We'll see him go into a Dark Bender, though, so okay, getting some of his friendly little range units up, just like Jump has, kind of competing in that frontier. And I think Jump is going to take the opportunity now to summon Koro to kind of put pressure on that Dark Bender.
I think that the Dagger Storm might be telling us that there could be an Arcanon Lord of Chaos lurking in his deck somewhere, which would be a serious issue for Jump, simply because he probably would not have the buffs or the big damage to take it out with the lifesteal aspect of it.
Right.
So I'm very interested to see whether or not he has that. I mean, that could be that in and of itself against Jump's deck, I think, is a win condition.
Perhaps. We don't know if it's out on board yet, but Dragon's Fire are going to reveal where Koru is for the moment here, as well as damage the Wizard. So Bolas going to do the smart thing here, retreat the Darkbender and the Shaman, not going to allow Jump to re-stealth the Koru. Going to prompt Jump, though, to use that Lunging Strike to, of course, hit the Shaman and re-stealth, which, I mean, good for him. He's going to, I guess, put some more pressure on that Darkbender, right, with the lunging movement.
I'm not quite sure about that play. I think maybe possibly just moving back and maintaining the board situation would have been just fine. Because the big issue that I think Jump can run into here is that he's going to start running out of cards at some point, because there's not a whole lot of draw in Ninja Druid.
No, certainly not.
He's not going to have something like a Grotesque Offering to expand his hand. I think it could be a very big difficulty for him.
But we'll see if he's able to maintain the board. I think right now he's in a fairly okay place. I mean, the Koro being a big threat to the Darkbender. Bolas has yet to put a sacrifice on the board, so we know Kargrim isn't coming out this turn at least. But we'll just have to see. Timer, of course, ticking down for Jump, one of Jump's fabled old enemies. Debating to put the Mana Core down, looks like he is going to, and of course pass back. Thankfully, the timer not hitting 0, but still, I mean, timer could be a bit of a problem because we just know Jump as a player overall. We'll see Darkbender go into the Mana Core, though, to get rid of it. He assumes that Darkbender's probably going to be dead next turn, so using it to the fullest of its capacity. I don't agree with the Elvish Thief play, mainly because Wizard's on board unless he's got something for it. We're going into Talavos instead. There is the sacrifice, so potentially Kargrim next turn then?
Could possibly see a swordsman swiftness coming out.
I mean, gold does line up, but it wouldn't eliminate the Talabos. It would just barely kill or barely kill the Talabos, yeah, and then, the wizard would get to finish it
Archdruid
off.
probably. I really like that play. I think it's that the fact that he's going to be able to sit damage on face, it's not going to be an easy cleanup. I mean, 10 health.
Right. And we'll see Core, of course, re-stealth. Masuda might go in, question mark? Well, we'll see Wizard definitely take out the Elvish Thief. No question there. Masuda might look to threaten the Hovel, though, looks like. And, of course, Trent's moving around here. Granted that we did see a sacrifice in the last turn, I wouldn't be surprised if Kargrim is the play that comes out now. That's just my assumption here. Unless he doesn't want to waste a sacrifice and have to do it later on. Or, okay, never mind. He also grotesque, which of course is going to give him more draw here. Do we go into Kargrim? I'd like to see a Kargrim, even though
I
we
think
don't
that
have the gold
it,
for it.
I think the issue that's going to show up really quickly here for Bolas is that if Jump starts playing something like Swordsman, it's going to be very difficult to just run it off face.
Right. So we'll see the Dagger Storm hit the board now. A couple of bleeds spread amongst a lot of the Arc Druid spawns, actually both trees and the Arc Druid herself. Core, going to go ahead and clean up the, I believe that was a second Talabos in front of the Havel. I kind of missed the trade-off there.
Absolutely.
Alright, so then of course Tree taking more damage while he can, and then yeah, Jump might be beneficial here for him to push the Swordsman as sort of like his big game ender, because I don't think Bolas, with the limited resources he's got in hand, might be able to deal with a Swordsman, unless Kargrim is sitting in hand for next turn.
I actually disagree with the Swordsman play. I
Really?
think Kuro. Actually, never mind. I was mistaken on gold.
Okay, so there is Kargrim like we predicted. He is making his appearance on board. I can't necessarily actually kill off the Trent, actually, or the Swordsman, excuse me, because Trent's still in the way. Okay, or Blue Fire bolts it. That works too. So yes, Swordsman does go down. Bolas avoiding the danger that is the Swordsman threat, but we'll probably see a combination of Archdruid, Wizard, and maybe Koru take out the Kargrim if he really wants to. That'd be a lot of resources though into that Kargrim.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth it though, simply because there's no sacrifices played.
Right.
I think from that position, with only two cards in hand, it's going to be very, very uphill road for anything Bolas will do.
He needs a Dragon's Fire, I would say, if he wants to get back in this. Something
Especially if Jump drops Centaur on face here.
right. I'll take a
Demon Hunter swiftness is nothing to laugh at.
right. So I mean, Jump might have this game pretty much in the bag after removing that Kargrim. I don't see Bolas getting a clear recovery. Needs some kind of AoE like Dragon's Fire. He sells the gold for it, but throwing out the respect, so I don't think he's got it. And there is the surrender. So Jump does take game one against Kargrim. Very strong opening here for Jump. And yeah, I mean, pretty much like we said, I think Jump had, well, we mentioned that Jump was having the slight advantage, right? I might have misremembered that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that once Leanna hit the board, there was just no counterplay Bolas could find, and that was just the game.
Right, right. Maybe looking for another Dragon's Fire, but just couldn't find it in the deck. So, with that being said, I think we can go back to both players and see how they're feeling. So, let's go ahead and jump back to them. Alright, folks, and game number one has concluded here. Jump picks up the win in game one. Now, Jump, talk to us pretty much about how that match went in your mind, really. I mean, going up against the Warlock Pirate, did you assume it was going to be a Kargrim deck? Did you kind of pick up on that in the match? Just take us through it. Take us through the matchup.
Yeah, no, you never expect the Karagram Inquisition, but um, naturally assumed it was the recent OTK popular thing that's been going around, but I don't know. I just kind of it felt like a lot of the game played pretty standard with just trading and positioning as well as you can. My wizards helped me regain the early game disadvantage that I had from not having double lumberjack. But um, once the Kargrom hit, I realized if I wasn't going to draw any global buffs, I was going to be in trouble. So I decided to trade in my Kuru for it, my
Right.
second Kuru, and I just realized he was low on cards, and so was I, but I had a better board state, so I was willing to make a not necessarily a great trade,
But one that would
but
win you the game,
one
ultimately.
that, yeah, ultimately gave me a big board presence. So,
Right, right. And I think we also noticed at one point you had a couple of options at approaching. I believe Bolas had like an Elvish Thief in front, followed by a Talabos, or like an Elvish Thief two spaces in front of Castle, Talabos behind, and you had the option to go into a like Swordsman Swiftness combo, but instead went with the Liana. And we kind of just mentioned that Liana for you just throughout, like from the point that she was summoned for the rest of the game, just did so much for you. Um,
yeah.
do you have any, reasoning as to why you just kind of went with the Liana in that moment instead of like the Swordsman Swiftness?
Um, yeah, Swordsman Swiftness, so it would have had to have traded with the Elvish Thief. It would have been left there at 4 health, and I still would have had to have traded. Oh, I guess I could have used the wizard on the Talabos at that point.
Right.
Um, but likely the swordsman would have died off. I just felt like the Liana was more impactful. She is a 9 cost unit, so it's very expensive to play. But if you can get her on the board, it can swing the tide of the game
Certainly.
tremendously.
Certainly. And do you
Yeah,
run
it's just
only?
dangerous. It's
Oh, go ahead.
dangerous if you draw too many of them early on. It's the same kind of thing with Yenneroth. It's such a powerful card, but you gotta play it in a smart way.
Right. I was just gonna quickly mention here, like, because I know some people with Arc Druid, usually sometimes a one of or two of. I mean, do you kind of feel like where it is in your? I mean, I'm not gonna make you, of course, divulge, the count of it. But I guess in your opinion, is it stronger playing the one or two in deck?
Most
Just
of the
to.
time, yes. I'm currently playing a 3 of
Oh,
for
okay,
Liana, just because it's such an important part of this deck.
okay,
Like it is a win condition for the deck, so I play a lot of it.
right, right.
But
Uh,
yeah, typically I would not recommend playing 3 of them.
Slash, do you have anything for Jump before we move on to Bolas?
Oh, I love the colors that you're playing, man. It's beautiful to see you, especially this season. Um,
Yeah.
I gotta ask though, are you running Vanishing Strike for your Lianas?
Sorry, Vanishing Strike?
Yes, sir.
No, I am not.
Uh,
Sorry, you cut out just a moment. I
oh,
wasn't sure I got the card name right. No, I'm not running Vanishing Strike for Liana's. I do have Beastmaster as well, so it would work well on both of them. Um, but it's it costs a lot to replay the unit. It's
yeah, yeah,
not quite worthwhile. I figure if I
But on
manage to get to the
turn
point in the
10,
game, if I manage to get to the point in the game where I play Liana, I'm already at such a strong position. I don't really need a card. A card like Vanishing Strike is more of like a win more card. But at that point, I figure I'm already winning. I don't need to dedicate 3 slots just to try and win more.
yeah.
Right. So I guess jumping over to the other side, then Bolas, we noticed. Unfortunately, Kargrim not able to kind of pick up the win here. You seem to have some strong early game presence, a bit of early aggression, but then you kind of slowed down a bit, and that's where things kind of caught up to you. So can you take us through your perspective going into that match?
well, yeah, I was very aggressive going into it, but I could have kept on being aggressive because I had a Dark Bender, but I also wanted to keep some units back just so I could have units to sacrifice. So that's the main reason I kind of stopped, like with the train of attack that I had early on. And But yeah, I really wish I could have drawn into some more Dragonfires to deal with. Well, I think that's what it's called, the board wipe thing. So I could deal with the Kyoros and the trees. But yeah, so pretty much I was able to start off pretty strong, but I just had to keep on digging to find the cards I needed.
Right, right. And I mean, that kind of brings me to my next question here. We saw Cargrim come out. I mean, I think later than you would have liked to see it. I mean, were the grotesque offerings kind of being played in the instant? Like, did you find him at a relatively bad time, do you think? I mean, would you like to have had him out sooner?
I wasn't actually looking for him at that time. I was actually trying to find the Dragon's Flame. That would have been better.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I don't know. I was just digging for any answer to all the units, but yeah, usually I would like to have him out earlier.
Right, right. And Slash, anything for Bolas? Because I mean, it was pretty brief from me.
Do you think that you had any win conditions after? I mean, not after he killed off your Cargrim, but after he went and played his Leanna, or do you think it was basically an open shut deal?
I think the Leanna was a pretty unexpected play again. Looking for the flame storms, but uh, yeah, it was yeah, I didn't really have anything to deal with. Mostly, I was scared of the Kyoro, so I had nothing to deal with the trees. Yeah, the deck kind of runs out of cards pretty fast.
Right. And that's kind of, I think, the nature of just Warlock Pirate not being super strong in draw. I mean, you have options, but of course, you're not packed to the brim like you would be for Crusaders. So
Yeah.
Yeah, a good tip for warlocks if you're running a deck that tends to run out of cards quickly, the 6 health shield guy that generates an undead unit. What's he called?
Tower Shield. I forget. I know
Keeper,
he's
Oh yeah.
Keeper of Doorway.
Keeper of the doorway.
the
Yeah,
5 gold.
that guy is an excellent card draw.
I'll have to try him out.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite cards in the warlocks.
Right.
Alrighty.
All right. So with that being said, I think we can move into game number 2. So let's go ahead, gentlemen, and jump right into it. All right, folks, in game number 2 underway now. Of course, Jump bringing back the Druid Ninja for one more run. Bolas going with Crusader Warlock. So, not in his OTK build, which is certainly interesting to see. Not in his bread and butter per se. But how do you feel about the Warlock Crusader matchup against what Jump's got here, Slash?
I think he could have a really rough time. I think that the Beastmaster coming out though is not a good sign for Bolas. But I mean, I'm not for Bolas, excuse me, but for Jump. I think it completely depends on what cards Jump starts playing
Right.
and at what point. Because if he gets something out that's big and bulky, or just a Kuro that never is burned off, it's going to be a very quick game. But on the other side, if Bolas just has his burn and has his draw and is hitting his outs, it'll just be there's nothing that Jump could do ever.
Right. Right. I mean, we're seeing some strong plays, though, from Jump to start things off here. Of course, using the Mana Core as a way to keep Masuda alive, to put pressure on the board here. And we might get actually another trade. White Knight falls to the armored up Masuda. So Masuda putting in a lot of value for Jump in the early stages. Bolas could potentially burn the armory here. Would be a good way to clear off all the threats. Yep, both the armory and the Masuda. And of course, throwing it back to Jump. But yeah, I mean, I'm already kind of noticing Jump's sort of spending a little more than he did in the last game here. I mean, he's going to be down once he plays maybe a Demon Hunter for his turn. I think that's what he's thinking about doing. Or Beastmaster?
I think he's specifically playing Beastmaster so that way he's drawing burn out of Bolas's hand.
Right.
Additionally, I'd like to comment on the Masuda's positioning last turn and that he placed it right in front of the castle so that way if any ranged units come out, he could hit it from any position.
Right.
Interesting that we're not seeing any more burn come out. This could be suggesting that either Bolas just doesn't have it or the wolf isn't threatening, which could signify that there's a arbiters or some kind of other healing in Bolas's deck.
Perhaps. I mean, he already kind of got rid of the armory. He could be worrying about maybe a rampage, but I think Bolas is under the assumption that Jump isn't going to put too much resources into the wolf just to, you know, get some castle damage. I mean, he could. He put his Darkbender in a very threatening position too. If that wolf were to get a rampage, and he might have been able to get rid of it. Maybe, not so sure. But Jump gonna debate the Koru now. Yep, which comes out. Maybe put a threatening glance on the Darkbender, and he's going to carry that lunging strike, which I think is going to be useful for where this Darkbender goes in any direction. Ooh, Flamestorm Tarius. Classic combo there. Going to get Bolas some cards, meanwhile revealing everything on board here. Takes out the bear too. Now I'd say Bolas is in a good place. Certainly
I
better than
think
Jump. Just minorly.
if we see any more global burn, I think it's going to be extremely difficult for Jump. But as it is right now, I think Jump is actually in one of the positions he'd like to see. If he can get something like Demon Hunter out and keep it alive for a single turn, he can probably get value for it.
But I mean, the Demon Hunter is also one of the only star tools in his hand as well. When you look at his hand, he got his other two Masudas in hand, plus a Were-Rat. If something were like, Flamestorm Part 2 to come back out, that would be a complete board wipe for Jump, which I don't think he wants to see, considering he's already slightly lower on resources than he maybe would have liked to be, perhaps.
For sure, for sure.
But we'll see Demon Hunter, of course, make her appearance. She's going to be a little more threatening to the castle here. Bolas might drop Dragon's Fire. He's in the gold range too, but he also may not have it.
I think if he had it, he would have dropped it by now. Because he can definitely, if he's able to say, I'm willing to take 2 damage on face for free from a wolf, he's probably thinking that he can take 5 damage on face also.
Right, certainly.
I think there's more threats on the board between the Kuro and Beastmaster than the Demon Hunter itself presents.
Right, and we actually know that Jump really can't put more gusto behind this Demon Hunter, considering that, we don't see any of the buffs that Jump would like to pair them with in hand. I mean, 2 Masudas, Were-Rat, now Centaur. Again, not the buffs he's wanting to see. I mean, we'll see which approach he decides to take for this Frog Prince. I would expect him maybe to go Wolf Beastmaster. Can't use the Were-Rat, obviously. I mean, and he wouldn't want to waste off Koru. Or going to a Masuda. That's fine, too. Not sure if... Okay, nope. Masuda going to make the trade there. Koru going to go in for 5 then. And Beastmaster, I guess, just going to chill behind. But, I mean, yeah, you'd have to agree that Jump is using more of his resources, I think, than he would have liked to be. I mean, certainly more than the last game, for sure.
If there's no global burns that come out, I think it's going to be game here, though.
Perhaps.
It's just going to be very difficult to hold off against this many units with when you're only at 8 gold. I mean, something like Mordok could come out and trade well, but even then, you're still going to be taking damage on face. This looks like it's a Knight deck from Bolas, actually.
Right, I mean, White Knight, Knight of Flowers, a lot of Knight elements in this deck. We might probably see Priest to Koru, Knight of Flowers to Beastmaster, right? Yep, and then blocks for the Masuda there. So, I mean, you got to admit, Bolas is keeping himself alive through, through the grit of his teeth.
Absolutely. I think that it's really shown that it is a Knight deck from this. I think it's much less scary to Jump now that he knows this, because Resolve, as powerful as it is against First Strike, that's not going to be the majority of Jump's deck.
Right.
There's going to be a big portion of it which will have nothing to do with First Strike, and that Resolve will be in many ways pointless if he goes up against something like Beastmaster.
Right, certainly true there. So we'll see Bolas going to go ahead and reset himself a bit here, kind of pushing back Jump's offense. Tarius File Cleric. Tarius File, bit of an awkward position. But Jump does pull up a Swordsman, which could actually wipe out this Cleric with no damage to it if he wants to. Swordsman Shadow Katana combo, very potent. But also, Shadow Katana could be saved for the Were-Rat if Jump wants to make a really devastating first strike. I don't know, which one would you take, Swordsman or Rat to get the Katana?
I think that I would actually just block face and then trade later, because I think that something like it could be a launching point for Bestial Rage, and that can just be a board clear on its own. And anything that Bolas has been building up in the back line would just be gone. I think now that he's moved his units in the way he has to trade,
Right.
because otherwise Bolas will trade for him.
No, actually does not go through with the swordsman and keeps Wereat in the back. I'm not sure if maybe he just forgot that it existed for a second, but that is going to allow Bolas to sack off his own Tarius files for more draw here. He could do a Lumi, although it wouldn't get everything on this board. The Wereat would still be kept alive. He needs something to probably actually withstand a Centaur Katana if he wants to properly block, or he can kill us with another blue Firebolt if he's got it. No, Frog Prince can actually survive through the Centaur Katana, yeah. Got the resolve after all. We just need that jump doesn't get a... Oh, no. Oh, no.
He doesn't quite have it, though.
He doesn't. But
But
Bestial Rage would be big.
he needs to first have played Centaur Shadow Katana, but the issue is that then you're losing that big Shadow Katana value.
You're also not necessarily killing the Frog Prince either with it. I think Centaur Shadow Katana is just shy of the 8 to pierce the resolve.
I actually question his Wereat and his Shadow Katana usage, not them together, but just simply having them on the deck, simply because he knows they can be such a liability if he
And here's
there's the
Lumi.
big Luminaris.
And there's Lumi. So that's pretty much going to seal away, I think, Jump for this game. I don't see a recovery for him, at least in this hand.
I think the buffs are just too much. Leanna, I think, will push off the damage for maybe a turn, but after that, there's just no way to come back.
Right. I mean, and even then, Frog Prince goes in, Darkbender goes in, Jump loses 2 trends. Leanna probably gets hit with the Lumberjack for more trade, and Bolas can continue to push whatever he's got left in the hand. Yeah, I have to admit, Bolas did turn this around here. Kind of the exact opposite of the first match, where, Bolas was the aggressor and then fell. And now Jump, slightly more aggressive in this game, and now he's also taking a fall in this one. So, a little ironic, little payback, if you will. We'll see how he decides to go about things here, though. Looks like Leanna going to go ahead, hit the Frog Prince, so a little bit of a trade there. I don't know if we're going to see the second one go into it. I don't think we should. Yeah, okay. So we're going to hold off. And yeah, Frog Prince looking to maybe chop down. Oh, okay. Goes for the Leanna first instead of the castle. Prioritizing castle. Unless he's got Arbiter. Nope. Okay, no Arbiter. Follows up with those with some big boys. Furnace Knight and Paladin both in deck. And yeah, Jump gonna be conceding here. I don't think he's got anything. So yeah, quite the impressive turnaround in this matchup, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
I
mean, that big late game power that Knights can have really shown through there.
Right. Right, and I think once that Lumi hit, we knew it was game over. We thought that maybe there could be some last breaths from Jump, but I just don't think the Lumi was going to allow that to happen. So, overall, again, another very strong matchup for sure. So let's go ahead and jump back to both players then and see how they're feeling after game number 2.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have Jump and Bolas here after game number 2 in their series for the July 26th matchup. Jump, we saw you take a loss there in the late game. I'm going to assume that's not the way that you hoped for it to play out.
Yeah, you never want to lose.
Yeah.
True.
Unfortunately, it was a good counter deck. He chose well, so I was at a disadvantage there, but it can't just credit it to that. He played it well as well, and I didn't see too many opportunities where I could have done things differently. So.
I'm surprised you didn't kill his Tyrius files with your swordsman that you took
Yeah.
damage for free there. there a particular reason for that, or?
Um, Not a necessarily good one. My thoughts at the time were that I was hoping he wouldn't go for the trade, and if I could, it was basically like
Hoping I wasn't smart.
I could see that it was that I was on my way to losing, so I took a big risk, and if it paid off, it could bring me back in the game. If it didn't pay off, well, I was losing anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Makes sense.
Do you? I saw you replace a fat bard there in the beginning. You mulliganed it out. Do you think that was a good mulligan, or would you have kept it next time?
uh,
Is
if I
there?
had known that if I'd known that I was gonna not draw any global buffs for the rest of the game, I would have kept it. But
Yeah, yeah,
Fat Bard with the upkeep tends to be hard to do.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it can really set you back if you play it too early.
do you think that the upkeep alone makes it worth it then in your coloration? Like, what would be your logic behind it that you play it?
So the reason behind that is I generally have a low curve on this deck, so it's it is cost effective for the buff, so long as you can keep up your presence. Like if you get an early lead,
It just
the
snowballs
buff that
for
it
you.
gives is kind of priceless. And since my curve is low, it's not like it's hindering me that much. I just need to be careful not to play two of them on the board at the same time, or else I can't ever play Liana.
Yeah, and as you already mentioned, you run 3.
Yeah, but the burn focused decks really counter this deck that I was running quite a bit.
Do you think the Nice coming out or the burn was a greater threat to you?
Uh, More the burn. The knights themselves were tough because of some of them having the resolve, but there are ways I can deal with that. Whereas the burn, like I put down an armory, it got burned. I put down, um, if I put down a ranged unit that can get burned, Kuru can get burned. My first strike units can get burned. Like it just really needs to win. My deck needs to win through trading, and if he just skips that trading and instead burns it, I lose a lot of value because I I can only gain value through trading
Yeah, for sure, for
and
sure.
doing favorable first strike trades and things like that.
Well, you got anything to add here, Red?
Um, Going through it, no, I don't think so. I mean, you covered most of the major points, I would say. I don't have anything to add specifically to this side anyway.
Bolas, you came back with a W here. You're looking good.
Yeah.
Looking very tight. It was a very dicey early and mid game though. What do you think turned that around for you?
Well, I have some life gain in the clerics and I have an arbitrator's return, so I'm not really that concerned about losing life in the beginning of the game. But yeah, his play with what was it, the mana core and his master on the floating cloud. Uh,
Masuda.
that annoyed me. How it took down my knight. So, but besides that, his deck is a bit more aggressive because mine has to kind of wait for me to get out my buffs, and but I have enough burn to keep him back. So even though I was kind of like I was trying to be the aggressor, but I was kind of like laid back in the first half. I knew that I could probably outlast the deck with all the burn it had and life gain and draw
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
and beef
What
units.
What do you think your like ultimate combo, the combo that he would not ever be able to stop in a million years would be for you in that deck?
Not really a combo. It's just like it's just getting out like the big knights at the end, and then having Luminarius in hand, just in case he tries to do something sneaky with
Yeah,
Akira
which
or
we did
something.
see come out.
Yeah, and but yeah, it's just really just you got the deck is an aggressive deck, but it's something that you have to build up towards, like to a big finale with all your knights. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's got a lot of draw and stuff. So like the Flame Storm plus Tarius Files, and one of my favorite things to do is put the Tarius Files in front of a knight and put them up to like the third, like into the aggressive position, because then they can't get past. They can't attack the knight unless they go through the Tarius Files. So
yeah.
pretty much that gives them free range to attack the castle unless they want to try to take out the Tarius Files. So in some ways, Flamestorm isn't always needed, which is pretty fun.
Especially with the shenanigans you pulled off there against the swordsman.
Oh yeah, the swordsman was fun. That was probably like the unit he did not want to play against the Tarius Files.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Red?
Yeah, I think before I close it out and move on to game number 3, just want to quickly ask Bolas, because originally, Swordsman wasn't out when you threw out the Cleric Tarius Foul push there, so I just wanted some more insight as to the aggressiveness with that play. I mean, you don't necessarily see Tarius Files, right up there in that position unless
Yeah,
maybe you're sacking in the
that's what
same
I was
turn.
yeah, that's what I was talking about before, because by putting it there, I think that's a really just strategically good position to put it, because back your knight or any unit behind it unless they go through it. So it's pretty much like sometimes I'll put like sometimes I'll like do the same thing with like a lumberjack in front of the unit that I want to protect and actually hit the castle. So pretty much it's just like they can't do anything about your unit, and your unit can attack the castle from 2 angles. So it's just a very like aggressive play, and it doesn't really matter where you put the Tarius Files, because you'll just flame storm it. Or sometimes the best combo is putting the Tarius Files in front of a Furnace Knight too, because of the Inferno.
Right,
So it just keeps your opponent way back,
right.
because they have to make the choice whether to give you the cards or take the damage.
Yeah, that's fair. Sounds good. And yeah, that's going to be all for me. So I think with that being said, we can now jump into game number 3. So let's go ahead and take you guys to that one right now. All right, folks, and welcome back. Game number 3 underway here. And of course, Bolas bringing back out the Cargrim deck from from the first game, excuse me. And of course, Jump brings out the Pirate Druid, which kind of caught a glimpse of. I think this is his range danger deck, one that's kind of focused around sort of utilizing the range, things like Cannoneer, maybe putting things like Scope, Bestial Rage on it. So we'll see if it's able to kind of counteract what Boss got here with Cargrim. And Slash, how do you think about this matchup? The idea of just range up against Cargrim.
I think the biggest issue that Bolus can run into is that both sides are going to be running buffs. Both sides are going to be running rats, and the big units that Bolas plays will be traded with 1 health remaining on the Rangers that Jump's going to be bringing out. It's going to be extremely difficult to get any presence on the board if everything you put out is immediately traded to a bigger, stronger unit, which is cheaper. We
Right.
already see the call parade in Jump's hand. He probably based on the position he's in right now, he probably will be playing that on turn 5, which means a turn 6 ranger or some other comment can be extremely dangerous.
Right. Certainly. Thinking that we might see the Maddie here, though, as a result of turn 4 play. And yep, gets a Lich, which is actually very big, I think, considering that I think Bolas would like a little more opportunity to kind of move around his units here for this upcoming turn, but it looks like that's not going to be the case here. Instead, we'll freeze off those units. Debating on where to put Lich, though, which is fine. You also don't want to be sure to lose the Lich too carelessly, because, of course, that could be a bit of a backfire if you don't watch out for it. But, I mean, yeah, how do you think that Lich impacts the game, Slash?
I think that if he plays his Matty aggressively, and that he could play Blacksmith next turn, and then he could be looking to trade off his Wizard for he sacrificed that. There will
Grotesques
be.
the Southport, yeah. Quite surprised considering that Southport does deal that stronger repost damage, but I guess maybe we would have lost it to the Wizard. Maybe that's sort of his mentality for that. Might see Jump go ahead and use the Drake to counteract the Thief here, keeping that alive by just 1 point. Or, like you said, this is turn 5, so he can go into the call for aid. Do you think that would be the stronger play here for him to make?
I think so, simply because those Rangers are going to be much more difficult to deal with than the just getting units on the board. I mean, something that has like lifesteal is an option here for Bolas, and so it could be very threatening if just a lifesteal unit comes out and starts eating everything on the board for free.
Just
It
just like the idea that things like Ranger does exist in your hand. It just, I guess frightens Bolas a bit. It's just meant to kind of maybe keep him back for a bit per se.
I think that Jump, now that he has the Dwarven Scope, he should just hold off on blocking here. He should, I mean, taking 9 damage here, but if he trades it accordingly after this, it's going to be much more beneficial than simply losing his first Ranger.
Right. Well, we see him put it out somewhat aggressively, not totally blocking Castle here, kind of giving Bolas the option to either go for the Ranger or for face here. And knowing Bolas as a player, I might predict that he goes face here. Okay, maybe more so considering the fear goes down. Follows up with the Shaman so for some draw cycle, and I guess maybe keep Cargrim back. That's sort of your big equalizer so far, right?
I think that's what he has to do, but with the Blacksmith coming out, this Cargrim actually is probably benefiting Jump more than it is Bolas.
Maybe. And we'll see a second offering get played with the help of the Medallion, so of course going to give Bolas a bit more resources to work with here. I do think I like to see some, maybe armories or bards from Bolas' side here. I mean, maybe to kind of get this Cargrim stronger and just kind of lay a big smack in the middle of the castle, kind of force Jump to be a little more aggressive. But yeah, I don't know how Bolas is going to kind of fare from this, because now we're going to see maybe a swordsman drop too, and kind of continuing to add that big pressure. And with the Dwarven scope we know that Jump has, it could be scary. Could be scary for sure.
I would definitely prefer to see a Northlands Ranger plus Faithful Drake here. I would prefer to see the Northlands Ranger more aggressive, so that way it could be threatening to take out the Darkbender. But
Right. Well, I think the mentality might be behind, or at least behind that, maybe sets up for a Dwarven scope to take out the Darkbender with a Ranger. I mean, he has enough bodies to where the Blacksmith is also going to be able to kind of do some more work, and maybe he won't need the scope necessarily for the Cargrim alone. But Dragon's Fire comes in, definitely takes out the Matty here, lowers everything, and I'm kind of thankful that, or at least maybe on Jump's end, that he didn't play Blacksmith before that big Dragon's Fire hit. Would have been not so great to see, I imagine.
for sure, for sure.
But then we get Cargrim also moving aggressively, which is questionable, because we know that that's sort of, Bolas's deck theme, deck focus. He's kind of just pushing it in there, and
And he didn't have a sacrifice last turn.
Right, right. Didn't have one, so of course Cargrim not going to be able to reappear, if at all. So we'll maybe see Blacksmith coming. Yep. Okay. So there's Blacksmith. Drake might move aggressively here just to kind of put some pressure and maybe move out of the way for the Wizard.
And I think to block board also, so that way, I mean, what can Bolas play here on with 8 gold that can really clean up everything here very nicely? I don't think there's much. I mean, maybe another Dragon's Fire.
I mean, maybe Mordok. He's allowing Bolas to keep the Darkbender alive, so maybe that could do some small work. Take out the Wizard through the spawn unit. Maybe.
Oh, last game we saw Jump falling to the fact that he was low on resources. I'm afraid that they could be a very similar situation here, as Bolas could make very, very big trades if Jump is not playing conservatively, but instead aggressively.
Right, right. And I mean, that's sort of what I thought could happen if Bolas took a big chunk. But it seems like,
Oh, I think this is going to be so bad. The Shaman is so expensive for just one draw. And it's not. There's not anything really here that's worth trading into or blocking.
well, blue fireball hits the board, takes out the blacksmith. So kind of getting some things a little smaller on the board here. But yeah, we have to use Darkbender to kind of kill off the ranger. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about that because I mean we're gonna lose the Darkbender here for nothing, and it looks like the blacksmith removal was all for nothing considering that we just drew into a second one.
I think the him not playing blacksmith here is very intelligent, and instead playing an early swordsman. Because
Right.
next turn he can play that blacksmith swordsman combination.
Right. He doesn't necessarily need the blacksmith to take out the Darkbender. He's got enough stats on the board as it is. So of course, holding it back and maybe forcing Bolas to maybe waste out a different burn for a different unit, perhaps, maybe. But
Oh, no, second Shaman, I think they're really hurting Bolas here.
yeah,
Uh, I would have liked to see Jump even go ahead and play his wizard forward and hit face, simply because there's not enough room in Bolas's units to go ahead and have killed that. Now that he plays the Master Thief, I may be questioning that a bit more, but still, once again, it's. I mean, here this turn, he
oh, and
should
he
be
can get
playing.
another ranger if he wanted to. Oh well, I guess no, not going with the ranger, but yeah, playing swordsman on face, and that's gonna be slightly difficult for Bolas to remove without the hard removal. But then again, that's another whole turn wasted, and we just saw Jump throw out a second one. So yeah, definitely not looking good for Bolas here, despite him having the huge card advantage that he does.
I think those big shamans really hurt him because they were being traded into small units, which something like Rat King could have eaten very easily.
Right, right. So we'll see Elvish Thief finally remove the wizard from board here. Second Kargrum makes his appearance. All right, so we're gonna do what a small bit of work here. Actually, I mean that prevents Bolas from taking lethal damage here, because nothing on this board has enough power here to kind of yeah, no, because if he plays Call for Aid, that's a turn too late, considering that you would have needed the Ranger last turn for the Dwarven Scope to come out and make a huge impact. So yeah, I mean, all right, we're kind of slightly still in the game here, but not quite yet. Gives Bolas another turn to breathe here, but still in no better position considering that we're going to see a second, or what is it now, third Ranger? Second off of second Call for Aid, third
Third
Ranger in the
Ranger,
game.
yep.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah,
And that third Ranger also is I'm surprised at his positioning here. I think his positioning would have been way better if it was blocking so his blacksmith was maintained. Because if
right.
Bolas, I think though that Jump is also considering the board here. I think him maintaining that he knows that Bolas does not have the resources right now that he can go ahead and hit face for free.
Right, he needs to do a bit of board control here, a bit of quality cleanup. I mean, maybe get something out to deal with the swordsman, use Kargrim against the ranger, which is in that perfect health line for a trade. Or nope, okay, goes after swordsman. So we're still being threatened by the. Oh, maybe not.
And
I about to
Scope's
say,
gonna
yeah, Dwarven Scope has a less of a
it's been
chance to
blocked.
work. Oh God, all three dagger storms against the blacksmith.
I think that Southport captain's gonna come out here and it's gonna end the game.
Yeah, it's gonna make an
The
attempt too. Even with the
the ta-
blacksmith gone, the amount of turns that are left in the game. Oh, never mind. Blessing exists.
the Talibos really high rolled there, I think, for Bolas and didn't kill off the Arcanon because it hit one of the castles instead of one of the units, which for Jump it had a 1/3 chance of actually doing damage to him, but for Bolas it had a 50-50 chance.
Bigger risk there. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that would have changed the outcome of this game too terribly much because now with that Arcanon being on the board, I don't think there's going to be an answer for this this Southport Cannoneer. But
Yeah, no matter how you look at it, I mean, all a ranger has to do is move out of the way, and then it can just hit castle. So yeah, Bolas not going to wait for it, sees the writing on the wall, and surrender. So that means Jump is our series winner here, and I think a bit surprised. Well, I mean, not really surprising considering that we talked about before going into it that I think Jump again bringing the advantage here with the beef that was that call for aid with the Rangers. So yeah, I'm curious though to see how both players feel. So what do we say we jump back to them and see how they're feeling?
for sure, for
All
sure.
right, let's go ahead and go there. All right, guys, and welcome back. Game number 3 concludes, and with it, so does the series. Of course, Jump pulls ahead, bringing forth the green-white. But I guess before we kind of jump into sort of how my usual thing goes, takes to the match and whatnot, I just wanted to know, Jump, was that range danger that you kind of pulled out, or ranger danger? I couldn't see if there was an R in there, but I know that, we both know there's a bit of history behind us and, range danger, ranger danger, so.
Yeah, that was range danger.
Yeah, I figured.
Ranger danger has long been since deleted from this account, but
Oof.
it lives on in other accounts.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, somebody's got it somewhere.
But anyway, yeah. I mean, go ahead, take us through the matchup. What were you thinking against the Cargrim deck here?
So yeah, I'd like to talk about the choice of how or what I wanted to counter with, and ultimately against Cargrim, the biggest thing you want is to pull ahead when the Cargrim comes out. Cargrim's goal is you play a whole bunch of global buffs, and then Cargrim everything gets reduced except since you have the global buffs and they don't, you have extra attack. So my plan there is just have a deck that has 9 global buffs in it. Oh, hold up, wrong one. I've got blacksmith, I've got fat bards and armories. So the chances are pretty good that I can out global buff him. And I don't know, that was the main thought behind it. Other than that, it's just a fairly safe deck. I know it doesn't have too many spells that are reliant on targets. It does have scope and phantom strike, but and bestial rage, but ultimately it's not super point and click, so his Arcanon doesn't counter me too hard.
Right.
There were other choices, but yeah, main thought is pick something with lots of global buffs and good enough early game.
And kind of run for the hills with it, essentially.
Yep.
Interesting that you kind of see. Well, I mean, I can't see if there were foiled ones in there, but I mean, notice that you got one Maddie in there too. Kind of
Oh yeah,
curious that it's just is it?
that's
Oh, it's okay. Never mind. You just had to flex on me with the foils real quick. I get it. It's okay.
yeah.
But I guess going back to the matchup here, at what point did you think you really think to yourself that yeah, you got this one? Because there were moments that we kind of noticed that I mean, Bolas maintained a pretty big hand throughout the game, as well as at points where we thought the game was going to end. He kind of put up, he put up a defense. He put up something that you couldn't get to
Yeah.
lethal right away. But I mean, at what point did you find in the matchup that I mean it was over? It was over for you, and you were gonna walk away with it.
I mean, the big helps were the call for aids, giving me extra cards so I don't run out of steam, and drawing some ranged units were very nice as well. I guess it was more towards the end of the game when I realized I had it. There was a bit of uncertainty in the early and mid game.
Right. So
But
back and
yeah,
forth, if you will.
I just trusted that I picked a good counter matchup, and went with kind of good trades, not getting too greedy, but showing enough aggression on the board that I don't get stuck facing a late game Cargrom deck.
Certainly,
So,
certainly. And Slash, anything for Jump before we head over to the other side?
No, good game. Well played.
All right. So
thanks.
then again, jumping over to Bolas's side. Bolas, how'd you feel against the Pirate Druid? Were you a bit uncertain here? I mean, the
I was
bodies that were, Northland's Ranger seemed to be a bit of an issue for that. So talk to us about just how you planned on facing them.
I was pretty sure he was gonna be playing like Scope and Rampage and probably Rangers, and I knew that just like big, like he didn't really even need the buffs. Like if he had a big body like a Ranger, then I was like my Cargrims aren't gonna stand much of a chance. But I was hoping to draw my own scopes, since that's what kind of makes the Cargrims good, is that you're able to kind of maintain control of the board with a 7/7. But didn't get to that, sadly. But yeah, besides that, I think I had a pretty good. I was able to get out Cargrim early, and get out two of them, and I thought it was a pretty good game.
No, for sure. For sure. I mean, certainly was. I mean, like you said, though, the big bodies were just something that I think your deck specifically has a hard time dealing with. So we kind of saw that play out through the matchup. I mean, you did have some good points where I think, you kind of held off and put into question the way that the game would swing. But I think ultimately, just unfortunately, the Rangers are too chonky, too big to deal with. So, but that
Yeah,
is fair.
Would you say they're thick?
Yes, yes, I would. But go ahead and say it because I got other people here.
unoppressible.
Oh Jesus. Okay. Well, Slash. Before we start getting into the synonyms here, do you have anything to add?
I mean, Bolas, I'm sorry to say it, but I don't think those global buffs or the shamans have really helped you at all here. Just because, I mean, you don't draw the globals in this situation, and the shamans didn't trade. I mean, what's your opinion on them in their current setup?
I kinda the shamans are just like kind of there to be sacrificed. Honestly, I just run a blacksmith for global buffs, which is weird. But what I
So
think is
only
that,
blacksmiths?
yeah, only blacksmiths. Yeah, it's a weird deck. It's just that it's either you win with Kargum or you don't draw Kargum and you just try to burn them out and just attack and be aggressive.
I've got
So
a question, actually.
yes,
I didn't see it being played, but do you run Flame Prince in that deck?
no, I do not.
It's very good with Kargrum because it just keeps scaling up.
It's true. I didn't run them because most of my lower units I just want to sacrifice, but that's a good idea. I'll try
Yeah,
that out.
I would recommend it, and um, I would say you want to
Go net deck
sacrifice
for
your low
free.
unit, but don't just rush them forward. Keep them back and play defensively. Make them trade into you, or position in a point where you can choose your trades.
It's true. Yeah, I was trying to rush just because I knew that you had a bigger end game than me.
Yeah, I would recommend again instead of playing Shaman, draws you one card, which can be nice if you need card draw. But again, Keeper of the Doorway
Why
is
have we gone back
one.
to this?
No, I'm serious though. It's one more coin, and you get 2 extra health, and it draws you an undead card each time you attack. So it's
But
it's
if I
significantly
have
more card
Kargi,
draw.
he has no attack.
Yeah, but it's the same with Shaman. I don't know.
Honestly, my favorite deck to play with this against is any deck running Vikings, and like they're waiting for their
Yeah. Oh, they
Yarhim or their Rakanoth, not the
Ragnar.
Ragnar, and they play it and they think they're
Yeah.
saved and then they forget.
Yeah,
It's
or
so
they
funny.
you see them play at
Yep.
the Temple of the Five Gods, and then they go and play their Rat King, and you're like, oh, that's very cute, your little
Yep, yep.
-1 rats.
But especially the big bombs at the ends, because they always play them, and they're just like, and they forget, like, oh, it had
Yeah.
0. It's the funniest thing.
All right,
Alrighty.
gentlemen.
Yeah, I guess that's good.
With that being said, I thank you for padding out my runtime a bit more here. But with that being said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and throw it out to my future self to close out this video. So, good games to both of you, and a series well played. Alright folks, with that being said, I hope you did enjoy this edition of Casting Conflicts. Let us know what you thought of the matches, leaving your thoughts down in the comment section below. And of course, while you're down there, if you haven't done so already, be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, share with friends, and of course, subscribe if you are new or haven't done so already. It is the best way that you can support us here on the channel. And yeah, that's going to do it for me for now. So, until next time guys, stay gaming.